Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Julius Malema has responded to the high-profile departure of Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi from the economic freedom fighters. The Ndlozi departure has been discussed for the past 7 days. It was a well-coordinated affair with 3 major interviews, one on the SABC, the second with MacG, and the third on Power FM, which was followed by an announcement that he will be joining Power FM, hosting the Power Talk show between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. midday. The MacG discussion, in and of itself, showed me 2 things. Number one, that Ndlozi has a large constituency in general, but also that he has a large constituency among women in South Africa in particular. They were taking part in the discussion and on social media, and they were resonating with his analysis on innocence and purity and some of the other stuff that he discussed. His intellectual offering is something that South African women do find to be favorable, they appreciate it, and this is going to be Ndlozi's strength because people who vote more are women, and sometimes women are willing to put more money down to do more volunteer work, and they do also understand administration better than men. They know how to run households. They've been holding the South African backbone for decades without the full appreciation that they need. It's South African women who've raised all of these men because the men ran away most of the times and were absent fathers. So having that as a constituency in and of itself is significant. The second thing that I just got as an extraction from that interview is that the views on the show were very high. MacG is undisputably the top podcast in South Africa right now. If you look at the SABC interview, the first one, the exclusive, right? The SABC, and it wasn't quite exclusive, let's just call it the first one at the time, the break where he broke the story. They got 757,000 views on the SABC platform, and they have 2 million subscribers on YouTube, 2 million plus. But he got more views, 971,000 on the Podcast and Chill show, hosted by MacG and Sol Penduga, which has 1.5 million subscriptions. So the MacG podcast on YouTube is getting more viewership than the SABC, which has that institutional legacy. That just shows you how big the MacG platform is and why he had to go there. Some people are saying, no, he should have gone here, he should have gone there. Yes, he should go to a place like SMWX. He should go to other places as well, but you can't necessarily skip over MacG. That is a valuable platform. And MacG will ask those questions. He'll ask you about smashing. He'll ask you about bedrooms and virginity, etc., etc. That's the nature of the platform. That is part of Amachita discourse. That's what Amachita speak about. And he has to provide that content. It's part of his constituency, and it's why they came there, just to chill. People are not trying to... It's like a continuous braai without the meat, but with the meat for your mind, right? So people like that. So looking at that interview head-to-head with the Malema interview, you can still see that there's a gap in terms of constituency and brand between Ndlozi and someone like Julius Malema. The Julius Malema interview on MacG hit 2.7 million. The Ndlozi one is going to end up on about 1 million or so, 1.1 million, maybe 1.2 million. It's not going to go much further. That's because the window of attention shifts quite quickly on YouTube. So what you get, your first week numbers, those are more or less your numbers, right? And he's on day 3, but after about, 72 hours, that's when really everything dies down. So he's going to end up on about 1.2 million views. The Julius Malema interview is on about 2.7 million views. So that shows you that he's still not at the level where he could necessarily go head to head with someone like Julius Malema or someone like Jacob Zuma. But I do think that my theory that they are preparing him for a post-ANC 2027 elective conference has credibility. News 24 was reporting that Mbuyiseni Ndlozi consulted with Kgalema Motlanthe, former President Kgalema Motlanthe, and former President Thabo Mbeki, amongst other names. And he wouldn't disclose those names, but News 24 said that they can confirm that he spoke to those 2 former presidents. I also think he spoke to Naledi Pandor simply because his rhetoric about her was very positive, and that to me often indicates that people have been having conversations behind the scenes. I think she was. So the theory that I presented in the other episode where I said, is he going to make a play? for future president. I think that still remains the case for the reasons in that video. And I think now the News 24 reporting gives more credence to the credibility of that theory. Even though I didn't need that as confirmation, I think it adds. And for those who are more skeptical. So what did Julius Malema say about the developments last week? And I don't know if you saw, Floyd Shivambu posted a picture on Twitter of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi calling him leadership. Then Dalimpofu posted another picture of the three of them together saying that they were the three betrayers or whatever. Then Ndlozi was like, ooh, I don't want to be part of that. I rebuke this particular photo. But Julius has responded to all of that. And he had two responses. The one was him responding on social media, calling them small boys. And the second was him addressing the departure in passing at a faith event that he attended on Sunday. So this is what he said on Sunday.
I want to conclude by saying, Muruti, you must not be worried about the negative things that get to be said about you. Because how do you there will always be people who speak bad about you. There will always be people who speak bad about this family. I'm not shocked when you say, Mama, the brothers and family of the pastor left him. I lost my brothers now, turned against me.
Turned against
and I never looked back. I've never, not even once, doubted myself when my brothers turned against me. It is not for the first time that the brothers turn against each other. It's there in the Bible. It doesn't start with them. So why should I be a crybaby when they turn against me? You must be rest assured, Murud. Now I'm a living survivor. Now I'm one example. Mo unona le broto ke o shetse mashaledi ke nna mashaledi some reject which was written off and said he is buried. People even wrote books about me and said this boy is done, like they are doing now. But they don't know my faith. They don't know my God. They don't know my ancestors. And I will never be destroyed by that which has never built me. I will never be intimidated by that which has never disciplined me when I was a child. She must not thank us. She must thank Bishop, because we're called by Bishop here. And when this challenge was put forward, we knew this is what Bishop has put us against. We have to respond. So we are saying to you, your fees are resolved. You don't have to worry about those fees. You are going to become a doctor. And every time there is a gathering like this, you must come. We will call an ambulance. Over check the high blood, lady 1, 2, 3. Why? I was produced by this church. And therefore, I'm offering my services back to this church. God bless all of you.
Well, there it is. He's a survivor. He's not going to just disappear. He's not going to dwindle into insignificance simply because of the sentiments of a few. That's Julius Malema's response to this moment. So before we talk more about that response and even the fact that they are campaigning, in a church, or rather they are doing events in churches now, showing that they do understand the value of the faith community for the next election, for local government even, right? Because churches have a big role to play. So let's talk about the first response, which was on social media. Julius Malema was wrong to call Floyd Shivambu, Advocate Dalimpofu, and Dr. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi small boys. These are grown men. Some of them are fathers, they are husbands, and they are leaders in their own rights. They are leaders in their professional spaces, academic leaders, etc. Calling them small boys was dismissive. It was infantilizing. It sounded like lashing out. And, the public would have expected, and rightly so, a more mature response from Julius Malema in a situation of this nature. And he did not deliver. He was wrong. He fed into narratives of him being a bully, him being difficult to talk to, and him being difficult to handle sensitive issues. He fed into the perception that he lacks emotional intelligence, fed into the perception that he has anger management issues, right? That response, that one tweet, which was seen over 1 million times, for many would have actually been a justification for Ndlozi, for Dalimpofu, for Floyd Shivambu. The big conversation around the departures has included the question of why did Floyd Shivambu tell Mbuyiseni Ndlozi but not tell Julius Malema? Why did he betray the brotherhood, the bond that they had when he had said, I've told my children if I die, call Floyd, and Floyd was calling him a blood brother, etc., etc. And people have said we need to also look at Julius with a very harsh eye and look at what Julius himself contributed to that situation. So when he responds like this, calling people small boys, when he lashes out with infantilizing insults, the people who are skeptical and critical of him then say, Yabon, this is why they didn't tell you. This is why they didn't approach you. You're a bully. You don't know how to handle rejection. You have anger management issues. And this is why they are leaving your organization. That is why his response on Twitter was damaging. And it was wrong. It was wrong. So I think Julius has to figure out how to deal with these issues. When you have large organizations, companies, whatever the case may be, you will have turnover. You will have people at critical moments leaving, but you have to maintain your gravitas. You have to maintain a particular perception of yourself. Be that as it may, that is something that he did, and I think he was wrong to do so. His second response, the one that is from the video, the I'm a survivor response, he went full Beyonce there. He said, you can leave the group, but Destiny's Child is not going anywhere, right? That, I think, was a response that was more politically strategic and more politically powerful. Number one, it was a language shift. I think he picked up that people were critical of his tweets and not embracing his energy. So he went from calling them small boys to calling them brothers. So that shift of tone is something that is noteworthy. Then this particular speech was a rallying of his troops, a rallying of those leaders who have remained in the organization. It was something that will channel his energy to the energy of the volunteers and the activists of his organization on the ground, digitally, etc. I'm going to fight. I'm staying in this game. This is not the first time I've been written off. And Julius is correct. It's not the first time he's been written off. I remember when he was expelled from the ANC Youth League, there was an interview that he did with Deborah Parter, and she was like gleefully interviewing him, the end of Julius Malema. And, we're in 2025 and he's still a player in the political space. And I think further, Elon Musk has helped him with all of those social media attacks. I think those have actually helped cement Julius's credentials within the far left, within the radical community. And there are a lot of people who have those kind of viewpoints, right? So Elon Musk has actually helped him. The Americans picking him as the subject of attack. By the way, they picked him because the Expropriation Act really doesn't have that much to worry about. It doesn't have a lot of teeth, and it's similar to American laws such as eminent domain. So they had to find, a better example to show that there are problems, and they picked Julius Malema, and in so doing, they gave him credibility on the base. You got to think about what that comes across in the townships, in the rural areas, in the informal settlements. The richest man in the world is attacking Julius Malema. So that means Julius is fighting for me. That means Julius is doing something right. So I think that's also helped him. He's going to be a factor. Something that also is important to understand about the political moment and even the history of post-94 politics. Playing the underdog is a powerful strategy in South African politics. And Julius is now positioning him as the underdog, the person positioning himself as the underdog. People have written me off. People like, in general, to root for the underdog. They like to give the underdog a chance. People like a comeback. And it seems this is how the EFF is going to position themselves in this political moment, as the underdog, as the party that's fighting for the poorest of the poor against all of these political elites, the anti-establishment party. And that is something that could work. It's worked before very effectively. Jacob Zuma has used this strategy, used it to beat Thabo Mbeki. the South African political space does have an appetite for the underdog, because all of the fighting apartheid political history was of an underdog organization fighting the Nationalist Party, coming from this position of having to use all these strategies to beat this behemoth, which had the economic and military power to suppress them, but they beat it. So that supporting of the underdog is not a small thing. It's a significant thing. And Julius Malema is tapping into that energy. We're a survivor. We're the underdogs. You guys are trying to write us off, but we will be back, and we'll be back in a stronger fashion. That's something that I think will particularly help him, and something that he's actually very capable of using to his benefit. So that's where things stand. What do you think about the responses from Julius Malema and the economic freedom fighters about everything that has played out with Ndlozi? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Till the next one.